Assassin's Creed Unity, Batman Arkham Knight, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. What do these three games have in common? They're all recent examples of games released full of bugs and glitches to the point of being almost unplayable in some cases. Years ago, the only thing this meant was buy at your own risk. Nowadays, however, things are a bit more complicated. With the advent of online systems for home consoles, which is something the PC has had for well over a decade now, developers can now send patches and updates to the games after release, meaning that if a game is broken on launch, it may not stay that way forever. Now this creates a very difficult situation for almost everyone involved, but let's start with the game reviewers. The primary job of somebody reviewing a game professionally is to provide potential buyers with a snapshot of the experience so they can make an educated purchase. The secondary job is to provide their opinion on that experience. This is an issue when the experience, and thus the opinion on the experience, can change over time if a game is fixed post-release. A game that a reviewer finds unplayable due to bugs can be an entirely different experience after a patch. It brings into the question, should reviewers go back and do a review over after a patch? Most publications that review games have a policy not to go back and redo their review. However, a consumer that goes to buy the game 3 months down the line may be wrongly put off from buying the game based off the reviews from the game at launch. This is neither fair to the consumer nor fair to the developer of the game, which brings me to the next entity that's affected, the developers. Why does it seem more and more games are being released in a broken or unfinished state? It's really because of an entire broken system. But the most responsible party would really be the publishers of these games. Publishers are pushing for developers to make so-called AAA games at a breakneck pace with fewer resources than necessary. You could do a quick Google search for horror stories from developers who rarely saw their families and were driven near mad to complete a game in the time frame given. The biggest issue arises when a game that is released in a poor state due to the circumstances created by the publisher reviews poorly, thus sells poorly, and the developers that worked on it tirelessly are shorted out money and bonuses. This means all the hard work that they just put in just results in disappointment. Even if their game is fixed in a week or a month, that initial review score is what stands. Metacritic scores are held as the law with gaming. Since reviewers don't go back and redo the reviews, the Metacritic score does not change. Potential buyers looking 6 months down the road will be looking at the same score as buyers who looked at the reviews at launch, even if it's an entirely different experience. Probably most affected by the current review system is the consumer. Buying a game means not only an investment of $60, but also time and effort. No one wants to waste money on a game that is frustrating to play due to technical glitches. It also affects someone down the road when the game is actually patched and fixed, who may have been willing to buy the game until seeing those review scores. It puts them in the difficult position of either buying the game and hoping they don't encounter the bugs, or avoiding the game altogether. It's especially difficult for somebody who really was anticipating that game. So what's the best course of action here? Reviewers certainly can't wait for patches to release the review. Those patches can take months, and sometimes years before the game is actually completely fixed. It's unfortunate, but publishers aren't going to give developers more time or resources to work out those bugs before release. Consumers with more and more access to information are not simply going to buy the game and hope for the best. So really, what can be done? The best course of action is for publications to revisit the game, to actually change the review score when and if the issues are resolved. Games are not like music. They're not set in stone. An album once released does not really change over time. It's understandable for a reviewer not to go back and revisit the album. Games, on the other hand, can change over time with patches and updates. Any responsible, professional reviewer who takes themselves seriously should be taking another look at a game once it's fixed or patched. They should also consider rescoring that game based on the updates. Now, this may sound like the potential for a slippery slope. Where does the revisiting end? Should a reviewer be expected to look at a multiplayer game 3 years down the line and talk about how the community is dead? This applies only with games with technical issues, not inherent gameplay issues. Bad game is a bad game, glitches or not. However, looking at two of the games I mentioned, Batman Arkham Knight and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, if you read the reviews, there's at least a decent game hiding underneath the technical issues. Reviews for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 do reveal that there is a nice game hiding beneath the technical glitches. For Batman Arkham Knight, it really only affects the PC version, which was almost unplayable at launch for some people. However, Batman Arkham Knight for the consoles is getting rave reviews, so we know the game is there. Unlike, say, a game like The Walking Dead Survival Instinct, which is not going to be any better just because the technical issues are resolved. So there is easily a clear line when a redo is necessary and when it's going to be just a waste of time. As of now, the entire system is broken. There isn't simply one cause for the alarming number of big games being released in a poor state, and there isn't simply one party that's affected by it. The entire industry needs to adjust to the modern age. Thank you all for listening, subscribe if you like what you heard, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think reviewers should go back and review games and rescore them once they're patched after launch?